Hey everybody, this is Andres from Board Gamify, and today I'm back to talk about the expansion for Dune Imperium, Rise of Ix. So just like in my last video where I covered the expansion for Lost Ruins of Arnak Expedition Leaders, I'm going to go ahead and cover everything that's going to come with the expansion, all of the new features that they've included, and then I'll get to my thoughts towards the end of the video. So as always, I'll include some time steps at the bottom, so feel free to jump around. So let's go ahead and jump to the overhead view, and I'll cover everything that comes in the box. So the first thing is you're going to get a few cards for the solo variant, as well as some player reference sheets. And then you're going to get 4 new starting deck cards. Now these cards are actually only used in what they're calling the epic version of the game. And the epic version of the game is a slightly longer, more ramped up version of the base game. So you'll play to 12 points instead of 10. You'll replace your Dune Desert card with this Control the Spice card in your starting deck. There will be no Tier 1 conflict cards, so you'll only have Tier 2 and 3. You'll have 5 troops on the board instead of 3, and you'll also start with an intrigue card. So I actually haven't got to play this epic version, but I definitely want to give it a shot. Then we have 4 tokens that are used for one of the new characters. And speaking of the characters, there are 6 new characters with varying degrees of complexity. 2 1s, 2 2s, 2 3s. Then we have new player tokens. So there are 2 dreadnoughts and a wooden disc for each player. The wooden disc is for the new track for the board above. And the dreadnoughts act as troops. So they get deployed just like you would a normal troop, but they have a strength of 3 and they're persistent. So even after you lose a conflict, they'll stay on the main board. Then we have the extra starting main deck cards. There are 35 of these, which is quite a few. So to give you some context, the base game came with 67 cards in the main deck. So they added just over a little over a third of new cards. Then we got 4 new conflict cards, 2 Tier 1s, a Tier 2, and a Tier 3, 17 new intrigue cards, and then we have the next new addition to the game, which are technology tiles. There's going to be 18 technology tiles. They all cost spice, and they go on the new board up over here on the left. So the cost is on the top left, with the immediate benefit that you gain when purchasing the tile, and then the actual effect of the tile itself. So there's a pretty wide array of effects that you can get from these. So just to give you an example, this one gives you 2 Solari at the start of each round. This one you can flip over to gain a troop, and then all technology tiles will reflip at the start of each round. So you can essentially use this once per round. This will give you an extra water whenever you win a conflict, and this actually affects the end game. So you'll gain an additional point if you have 3 influence or more on all 4 of the influence tracks. So really nice abilities that come with these conflict cards. And these will actually go out on this board here in 3 stacks. And you'll always be able to purchase any of the 3 that are on the top of each stack. So let's go ahead and talk about this new board. So this board is an addition to the board that comes in the base game. You'll just set it off to the side. And there's 2 new worker placement spots. So this one here on the top will give you 1 point to spend during the reveal phase of each round. And then you can either purchase a technology tile at a cost of -1 or deploy troops. And what that does is in future rounds, when you're able to purchase technology tiles, it'll be at a cost reduction for the number of troops that you have here, and then those will get returned. Then we have the dreadnought space, which gives you access to a dreadnought, and then you're able to purchase a technology tile at full price. Then we have this board here, which is actually meant to be an overlay. So this is actually going to cover the top portion of the board that comes in the base game. And over here on the left for the green section, they essentially just removed 2 of the spots, and then the other 3 stayed the same. So we still have the High Council, the Mentat, and the Swordmaster, which gives you your extra worker. But the big change was here on the yellow side. So this added the shipping track. This, in my opinion, was probably one of the bigger upgrades. The yellow portion of the old board was a bit lackluster. They weren't really highly contested spots. It was essentially, you'd go there to gain Solari or turn in spice for more Solari. This completely revamps that whole thing. So each player is going to start with a disc at the lowest portion of this track. And This symbol allows you to move up the track or recall your ship. And when you recall your ship, you gain the benefits at that level and everything below it. So it adds for this really interesting decision that a player has to make each round. If they're going to want to push their ship up farther with the hope of getting to go back there and pull their ship back to gain more resources, or if they just want to pull it back and gain what they can for now. Because at least in the games I've played, these spots are very highly contested over, especially in the beginning of the game, because this spot requires 2 influence on the red influence track before you can even go here. So for the first round, maybe 2, there's only going to be 1 spot available on this side. And that actually covers everything that comes in the base game. So let's go ahead and dive into some of my thoughts. We'll start with the new characters. I found all the new characters really interesting. Even some of the lower complexity ones, they are more straightforward, but their abilities are still really impactful. They're just a bit easier to execute than some of the higher tiered ones. They require a bit more planning and thought to execute their powers, but really enjoyed all of these. All of the new cards that you get are essentially just more of what we had in the base game, but added things that integrate with the new aspects, like the dreadnoughts, the technology tiles, the shipping track, just so that those are represented in all of these areas as well. The technology tiles are another fantastic addition. They give you something else to do with your spice, as opposed to the base game where you essentially could spend it on certain things, but a lot of times you were turning it in for Solari. The dreadnought is also really nice. It's a really nice addition because in the base game, oftentimes you could be deploying a bunch of troops, really trying to win that conflict and lose by, 1 or maybe 2 power at the end of it. And then you're just completely decimated. All of your troops get removed from the board and you have to start from scratch the next round. This is really nice because it gives you that persistent option to still have a presence for future conflicts. But I think my favorite part of this expansion is definitely this shipping track. This really took what I considered to be a tight game and made it even tighter. The fight in the base game, the fight for the yellow spots was never really that contested. Because you got so much Solari, you could get 6, 8, 12 Solari from one action. You would go there once and maybe not return for a round, 2, 3 rounds. So players would kind of rotate turns or rounds on which they were going to utilize them. This shipping track, everybody wants to use it every round. So you're really having to plan out and make sure you have cards in your deck that are going to allow you to move there. So really, really enjoyed that. But I think the most interesting thing I found about this expansion is it made me realize that there were certain aspects of the base game that they improved upon that I didn't even think were lacking in the first place. So for example, the addition of the dreadnought. It makes the conflicts still really impactful, still punishing, but not as punishing. If you go to the dreadnought space and invest in getting one of these, it pays dividends. You're going to have a presence on the board for future conflicts. And I didn't mention, these can also be placed on the locations just like your flags could in previous rounds, so that you get additional benefits from them throughout the game as well. The technology tiles gave you persistent effects or resources or abilities that were there for you every round, as opposed to being reliant on the cards you draw from your deck. The shipping track made Solari a much more contested resource than it was before. In the base game, water and spice were really highly contested, not only because you get so few of them, but there weren't a ton of spots that give them to you. The Solari, even though there were only a few spots that gave them to you, you got so much of it that you didn't really feel the need to fight over those spots. You would just go to it the next time it was open. Now, because it's been integrated into the shipping track and everybody wants to do it for any number of reasons, whether they want Solari, spice, workers, influence, technology, everyone's trying to fight over that shipping track, and you may be fighting for different things, but you can only get it here. So it adds another point of contention, and like I said, really tightens up a game that I already thought was tight. And for that reason, I think this is definitely going to become a must-have expansion for me. I'm going to play with this expansion every time I play Dune Imperium. Even if I'm teaching it to somebody for the first time, you know, the technology and the shipping track aren't difficult concepts to grasp, so you might as well include it in there. So yeah, highly recommend this. Obviously, at this point, you can tell I think this is a fantastic expansion. If you already have Dune Imperium and you enjoy the game, or even if you think this is really a game that you're going to enjoy just by seeing playthroughs and you're about to purchase it, I would really say go ahead and get the expansion while you're at it, because it just makes the game so much better, and it honestly makes me want to play the game more. You know, for a while, when Dune came out, it was getting played relatively frequently in my play group, and kind of slowly got played less and less, just because of, you know, the amount of varieties we have with board games nowadays. But this expansion really not only brought it back to the table, obviously because the expansion just got released, but I feel like it's going to have some staying power. It's going to make me want to play this game more. It really heightens that tension in the game. So yeah, overall, really enjoyed it. If you stuck with me this far, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the expansion, or if you have any questions. And if you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing to the channel. I'll talk to you guys next time.